Hi, I'm Tony, and I'm a co-founder at One Mighty Mill.
Hi, I'm Jon, and I'm a co-founder of One Mighty Mill. And we're going to share a little bit about why we started One Mighty Mill.
We're going to tell you tall tales.
So we started One Mighty Mill because we had spent 15 years together building a restaurant business that was trying to connect our customers directly to the source. And what we saw is that we could do it basically everywhere on our menu except for bakery, because it always started with the baker and ended with the baker. There was never a farmer, and there was also never any information that we shared about flour, wheat.
And it was just a huge blind spot. Like, it was just, farm to table became cliche. And we were super proud of these incredible relationships that we made with all sorts of fruits and vegetables, and that was all good and well. Our bakers were never really part of that story, and that was a blind spot for everybody, but definitely with us, just something that we didn't really think about or consider. I think as we thought about, new chapters, I think baked goods became really interesting. I know for me, bagels were an obsession, but as we started to think about that, I think it became clear just where does the wheat that we're going to be using for baked goods, where does it come from? How does it get processed? And I know Jon was instrumental, in really thinking on that. And I probably would have been content just to make bagels. And I think Jon's point was like, hey, if we're going to go and bake products, we better source the wheat ourselves and we better mill it. And I was just like, okay, sounds cool. Which I think we were lucky in being a little naive and stupid. Even at that point, we probably should have known better. So the idea of just milling and sourcing ourselves seemed like a why not.
We were discussing how we didn't know anything about flour, and then typically we would be able, or especially you'd be able to go back and figure it out. And what we realized is like there was no solution. We couldn't buy a mill. You could Google it. We couldn't really Google like what stone mill flour was.
Correct.
And so we had to really get back to the roots and figure out some really difficult questions.
Yeah, I think it's been a passion of ours to create sourcing relationships and make really good food with it. When we tried to apply that same process to something as simple as a bagel, as Jon mentions, there was just all sorts of blank space, white space. And I think so. In terms of just the very first part, that Jon started working on single-handedly was, how do we mill? And that in and of itself was kind of, a goose chase. Day one, I think, looked like Jon making lots of phone calls to all sorts of milling people and farms. Us trying to capture different kinds of flour and different kinds of milling information. Day one was like, was like a detective case where you're trying to find, what you want, but you're trying to find out where these things are.
Yeah, I think we probably had a lot of day ones, because we had a day one where we were like calling farmers or trying to figure out how we could get a mill. And then I think there was also like day one of taking flour that we had Andrew Stone mill for us and then baking it.
Yeah, some of the day ones in the baking realm were, they were in my kitchen, in Jon's kitchen, in school kitchens. Anywhere we could bake, we baked. It slowly got better, but slowly, I would underline that word. It was ugly. What did the first year look like? A lot of just tough baking days. What I learned to appreciate is anytime we bake product and we put it out front in our cafe, I always felt a little naked, just because whatever was going on in the bakery that day, folks would see it. And I think Jon would sometimes eat bagels that were less than, and he would try to get them out so that people wouldn't see some of our flaws. In a nutshell, I think what we were we were working with, one small partner farm, and we were understanding what their harvests looked like, how we were milling their flour, and how we could make it work in our bagels. And so I think it was really a process of learning both our wheat and how our mill worked. And each mistake, though, I think usually led to some understanding, and the product slowly got better.
Yeah, a couple things I remember from year one is this mill would consistently, we would have to stop milling, and then we would have to separate the stones, and we'd have to scrape the stones to get the moist flour off the stones, and it would create such a problem because it would stop production. But it was like a huge learning because we weren't milling correctly.
Yeah, and like even something as simple as what John just said, if our moisture level in our wheat is above 12%, we soon decided we couldn't mill. It was just simply had too much moisture. Excess moisture would stick to the stones. Stones would get really heavy. The belts that run the stones would make really loud screeching noises, and we would start running around panicking because
we couldn't make bagels.
Couldn't make bagels, and also a stone mill that's covered in really heavy flour is just kind of scary.
I also remember being in grocery stores and doing demos, so giving out samples, and literally thinking the whole time about how many days we had left on the products, so on our bagels or tortillas, how many days we had to sell them, because we had 7-day shelf life, and literally just being like terrified and like frantic about how we had to sell, and it's just very scary.
I think we're fortunate in that we didn't know what we didn't know, and anybody with, in their right mind probably wouldn't have set out to do what we did, but I think it was a mission, and I think we were really passionate, and I think I don't think we slept much. I think we spent every waking second thinking about how to improve the product. And I think I would say too that the small victories, when the bagels started to develop a little bit better and sales started to pick up, I think every small victory was monstrous and helped propel us forward. Is that I remember when we had, we're here in Lynn, Mass, which is our flagship. This is where we started. First mill, first oven, did all of our baking, all of our milling here. When we had the ribbon cutting for the city of Lynn, which, City of Lynn has been incredibly supportive of our growth and everything we've done. But the ribbon cutting happened to come on a day that, nothing was behaving, mill wasn't behaving, oven wasn't behaving. And I remember John was kind of like, we gotta cut the ribbon. And I was like, I can't.
We had the giant scissors.
We had giant scissors. And what we did was we sent the Miller Leo out there to cut the ribbon because I wasn't in my right mind. And so if there is a photograph in the archives, it's probably worth millions of dollars. You will see the Miller Leo just happily using giant scissors cutting. And we were dealing with bagel issues. But I think that's probably, symbolic of something. There's a metaphor in there. I'm not sure what. But it's a very strong memory.
I think we were pretty committed from that we were going to start a company. Like it was, I don't think it's scary, and like you definitely are always second guessing and you're terrified. But I think we knew we were going to start. It was just a question of whether it failed or whether we made it work. But I don't think there was ever a time where we were like we're either going to do it or not going to do it. I think it was just like, no, this is how the future is going to look. So.
Well, for me, like one thing I do recall, we had, while we were building out, I think it was black paper, or we papered over the windows. And if everything inside felt safe, because nobody could really see inside what it was doing. But I remember there was a debate, like John was like, do we want to just finally pull the paper down? And so it was a couple days, maybe a week before we were going to open, we opened up the windows, and I think at that point for me it was very real, because it's like this wasn't this weird hidden construction project. It was, we were getting ready to open a mill.
I think maybe at the beginning, one big moment was we did buy a lot of wheat. So we bought an entire harvest. So we started in 2018, but we committed to a 2017 harvest I think there were 20,000 pounds in storage in Maine. And I think it cost us, well, I guess that would be roughly $20,000. And so we hadn't raised any investment money yet, and we both split it. And I think owning that much wheat, there was like, we hadn't figured out the milling process, but I think knowing that we owned 20,000 pounds of wheat meant we had to do something with it. So that was probably a very symbolic moment of we're not going back.
There's this moment when you start up the mills that you can hear the stones starting to rotate, and they start rotating faster. And to me, it kind of reminds me of like an amusement park ride where you're starting to like go up. So there's a moment where it's kind of exhilaration. But it's definitely more scary than not. So I remember every time that the stone mill we would fire it up each morning. It was kind of like a here we go, like exciting, but I'd be lying if every time to this day when I hear that sound, I still get like a little nervous. So you can always, what we would do, which is really crazy, and we now have better systems, we would work with our farming partners. Now they can help temper the wheat down. We would cover our wheat, bless you, we would cover our wheat with a tarp, and we would put a dehumidifier under it overnight so that we could pull some moisture out. So you want to talk about old school, setting up a tarp over your next day's wheat and putting a dehumidifier over it. Thanks for humoring us and listening to our stories of how One Mighty Mill came to be. And
like and subscribe.
Smash it. Boom. And go up there.
Oh, this is a YouTube?
Make sure to subscribe. Subscribe and
Smash
like.
that like button.
Thanks for supporting